9. Rosa Riisa. Patience and perseverance win results. To the present-day opera-goers, the name of Rosa Riisa stands for a compelling force. In whatever role she appears, she is always a commanding figure, both physically, dramatically, and musically. Her feeling for dramatic climax, the intensity with which she projects each character assumed, the sincerity and self-forgetfulness of her naturalistic interpretation make every role notable. Her voice is a rich, powerful soprano, vibrantly sweet when at its softest, like a rushing torrent of passion in intense moments. At such moments, the listener is impressed with the belief that power and depth of tone are limitless, that the singer can never come to the end of her resources, no matter how deeply she may draw on them. There are such moments of tragic intensity in her impersonation of the heroine in Jewels of the Madonna, in Sister Angelica, in Norma, as the avenging priestess, in which role she has recently created such a remarkable impression. A prima donna at home. If one has pictured to oneself that because the Russian prima donna can show herself a whirlwind of dynamic passion on the stage, therefore she must show some of these qualities in private life, one would quickly become disabused of such an impression when face to face with the artist. One would then meet a slender, graceful young woman of gentle presence and with the simplest manners in the world. The dark, liquid eyes look at one with frankness and sincerity. The wide, low brow, from which the dark hair is softly drawn away, is the brow of a Madonna. In repose, the features might easily belong to one of Raphael's saints. However, they light up genially when their owner speaks. Madame Riisa stood in the doorway of her New York apartment, ready to greet us as we were shown the way to her. Her figure, clad in close-fitting black velvet, looked especially slender. Her manner was kind and gracious, and we were soon seated in her large, comfortable salon, deep in conference. Before we had really begun, the singer's pet dog came bounding to greet us from another room. The tiny creature, a Mexican terrier, was most affectionate, yet very gentle withal, and content to quietly cuddle down and listen to the conversation. "I will speak somewhat softly," began Madame Riisa, "since speaking seems to tire me much more than singing, for what reason I do not know. We singers must think a little of our physical well-being, you see. This means keeping regular hours, living very simply, and taking a moderate amount of exercise." Yes, I always loved to sing. Even as a little child, I was constantly singing. And so I began to have singing lessons when I was 8 years old. Later on, I went to Italy and lived there for a number of years, until I began to travel. I now make my home in Naples. My teacher there was Madame Marchisio, who was a remarkable singer, musician, and teacher, all three. Even when she reached the advanced age of 80, she could still sing wonderfully well. She had the real bel canto, understood the voice, how to use it, and the best way to preserve it. I owe so much to her careful, artistic training, almost everything, I may say. The singer's life. One cannot expect to succeed in the profession of music without giving one's best time and thought to the work of vocal training and all the other subjects that go with it. A man in business gives his day, or the most of it, to his office. My time is devoted to my art, and indeed I have not any too much time to study all the necessary sides of it. During the season, I do regular vocal practice each day and keep the various roles in review. During the summer, I study new parts, for then I have the time and the quiet. That is what the singer needs, quiet. I always return to Naples for the vacation, unless I go to South America and sing there. Then I must have a little rest too, that I may be ready for the labors of the following season. Vocal training. Even during the busiest days, technic practice is never neglected. Vocalizes, scales, terzetta, what you call them, broken thirds, yes, and long, slow tones in mezza di voce, that is, beginning softly, swelling to loud, then gradually diminishing to soft, are part of the daily regime. One cannot omit these things if one would always keep in condition and readiness. When at work in daily study, I sing softly or with medium tone quality. I do not use full voice except occasionally, when I am going through a part and wish to try out certain effects. One voice. I was trained first as a coloratura and taught to do all the old Italian operas of Bellini, Rossini, Donizetti, and the rest of the florid Italian school. This gives the singer a thorough, solid training, the sort of training that requires 8 or 10 years to accomplish. But this is not too much time to give, if one wishes to be thoroughly prepared to sing all styles of music. In former days, when singers realized the necessity of being prepared in this way, there existed, I might say, one voice, for the soprano voice was trained to sing both florid and dramatic music. But in these days, sopranos are divided into high, lyric, coloratura, and dramatic. Singers choose which of these lines seems to suit best their voice and temperament. Coloratura and dramatic. It is of advantage to the singer to be trained in both these arts. In the smaller opera houses of Italy, a soprano, if thus trained, can sing Lucia one night and Norma the next, Traviata one night and Trovatore the next. Modern Italian opera calls for the dramatic soprano. She must be an actress just as well as a singer. She must be able to express in both voice and gesture intense passion and emotion. It is the period of storm and stress. Coloratura voices have not so much opportunity at the present time, unless they are quite out of the ordinary. And yet, for me, a singer who has mastery of the beautiful art of bel canto is a great joy. Galli Curci's art is the highest I know of. For me, she is the greatest singer. Melba also is wonderful. I have heard her often. She has been very kind to me. When I hear her sing an old Italian air, with those pure, bell-like tones of hers, I am lifted far up. I feel myself above the sky. Do not yield to discouragement. The younger singer need not yield to discouragement, for she must know from the start that the mastery of a great art like singing is a long and arduous task. If the work seems too difficult at times, do not give up or say, I cannot. If I had done that, I should have really given up many times. Instead, I say, I can do it, and not only I can, but I will. Musicianship. There are so many sides to the singer's equipment, besides singing itself, and Madame Reisa lifted dark eyes and spread out her graceful hands as though to indicate the bigness of the subject. Yes, there is the piano, for instance. The singer is much handicapped without a knowledge of that instrument, for it not only provides accompaniment, but cultivates the musical sense. Of course, I have learned the piano, and I consider it necessary for the singer. Then there are languages. Be not content with your own, though that language must be perfectly learned and expressed, but learn others. You of course speak several languages? Questioned the listener. Yes, I speak 8, she answered modestly. Russian, of course, for I am Russian, then French, Italian, German, Spanish, Polish, Romanian, and English. Besides these, I am familiar with a few dialects. Have patience. So many young singers are so impatient. They want to prepare themselves in 3 or 4 years for a career, and Madame frowned her disapproval. Perhaps they may come before the public after that length of time spent in study, but they will only know a little of all they ought to know. With a longer time, conscientiously used, they would be far better equipped. The singer who spends 9 or 10 years in preparation, who is trained to sing florid parts as well as those which are dramatic, she indeed can sing anything, the music of the old school as well as of the new. In Rome, I gave a recital of old music, assisted by members of the Sistine Chapel Choir. We gave much old music, some of it dating from the 6th century. Do I always feel the emotions I express when singing a role? Yes, I can say that I endeavor to throw myself absolutely into the part one am portraying, but that I always do so with equal success cannot be expected. So many unforeseen occurrences may interfere, which the audience can never know or consider. One may not be exactly in the mood, or in the best of voice. The house may not be a congenial space, or the audience is unsympathetic. But if all is propitious and the audience with you, then you are lifted up and carry everyone with you. Then you are inspired and petty annoyances are quite forgotten. Vocal mastery. You ask a very difficult question when you ask of what vocal mastery consists. If I have developed perfect control throughout the 2.5 octaves of my voice, can make each tone with pure quality and perfect evenness in the different degrees of loud and soft, and if I have perfect breath control as well, I then have an equipment that may serve all purposes of interpretation. Together with vocal mastery must go the art of interpretation, in which all the mastery of the vocal equipment may find expression. In order to interpret adequately, one ought to possess a perfect instrument, perfectly trained. When this is the case, one can forget mechanism, because confident of the ability to express whatever emotion is desired. Have you a message which may be carried to the young singers? She was asked. Tell them to have patience, patience to work and patience to wait for results. Vocal mastery is not a thing that can be quickly accomplished. It is not the work of weeks and months, but of years of constant effort. It cannot be hurried, but must grow with one's growth, both mentally and physically. But the reward of earnest effort is sure to come.